In this video, you're going to learn about how to create the most valuable lead magnets in the B2B space. So these are assets that are really high value and that allow you to convert from your cold traffic into those warm pipelines and then meetings booked and sales, right? So first things first, well, who am I? I'm Conrad, in case you guys don't know on this channel yet. Essentially, I've been doing lead generation for the last couple of years, as well as other go-to-market functions throughout many, many different companies. And I've generated a lot of pipeline, over seven figures in my career so far, as well as raised a bit of funding and done other startups that enabled me to get to this point, right? So in case you want to learn more about me, here's my LinkedIn. You can look at the CESRP framework that I always work with on my channel, as well as with my other clients, in case that's something you guys are interested. But to get into the video here, essentially, what are lead magnets, right? So lead magnets are high value assets that you're providing for free in exchange for interest in the form of contact info being returned, right? So the most effective B2B lead magnets basically deliver value that this person's already looking for or has the need of, right? And they set you up for a place where you can have a lot of expertise. So just really high level, couple examples here. You can start out with like research reports or calculators and mini tools or frameworks, templates, step-by-step process videos, something that's very specific to their day-to-day life, that's really well researched, and you're allowed to give it forward, right? And I'll go into that a little bit further along in this video. Now you may be asking, like, why are lead magnets necessary? Well, especially in cold outbound and cold email, you have to remember the principle that it's cold, right? Meaning they don't know who you are, they don't really have a reason to care, and of course, because they don't know who you are, they don't really have a reason to trust you, right? So the way we overcome that is by providing value first, right? Because what does value enable you to do? Well, of course, within the word value, you're able to be valuable. You're able to establish trust by giving something that's perceived as valuable. And as a result, that really engages the prospect forward within your pipeline, right? So the problem that most people do is they don't provide value forward. They just try to schedule a call immediately. And those emails, 99% of them or more, get ignored simply because it's like asking to get married on a first date. It just doesn't make sense, right? You have to know each other a little bit. You have to actually trust, and then you can finally, get into the marriage portion of the whole life. So decision makers also need to see that there's like concrete value first, as well as people actually value their time, right? So you have to make sure that whatever you're going to be pitching to them is a clear ROI for even them to invest their time into, especially for strangers, right? On top of that, competition rises every year. So it's always going to be a value battle. But most people in the outbound almost never, ever do this. So we kind of analyzed our own campaigns at our agency as well as our growth partner agency. And we saw that generic cold emails, typically right now in today's market in 2025, get 1 to 3% meeting rate, right? Which is pretty high still, with a really good evergreen script for meeting rate, not just a reply rate, but a meeting rate. But with value first approaches, from those positive replies, we get really, really, really high meeting rates compared to it, because they want to discuss those lead magnets. They want to discuss the value that you're providing to them, right? And on top of that, we found that 76% of buyers prefer content tailored to their role, which is tied to their pain points or the benefits of the lead magnet, right? And 82% of B2B decision makers value unique insights over just generic content that you're spraying and praying. You may be asking, like, well, how do we actually make a lead magnet that's really valuable for this one person rather than just an entire industry, right? That's where also people have a couple pitfalls. We'll go into that in this video as well. So essentially, lead magnets, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, they deliver immediate, tangible value that's upfront, which allows you to be trusted, which allows you to be perceived as the expert, right? And that you're actually already delivering something to them that really gets you into the way of benefits, right? It opens doors that normally would be closed. Like, you're going to be discussing a point of something that they already value. so that you can unlock the rest of the conversation. Essentially, that's the real big point of those lead magnets. It differentiates you a lot from those let's chat competitors. They're just asking for your time immediately. It doesn't make sense, right? You have to provide that value first, as well as you can, of course, pre qualify who you give or invest your time into with those lead magnets. Now, before we get into the give to get method, one quick disclaimer I'd like to make is you don't have to give to everybody, even if you promise something on a cold email. Think about it this way, right? Do you remember the email that you got a week and a half ago from somebody that was pitching you? Probably not, because you get so many of them, right? And everybody's asking for your time, and it's just maybe not the right fit for you. But would you be able to probably remember the last time you got an actual killer industry report, or you got a couple of insights or a couple of links that you really, really wanted for this one video that you maybe use today for your frameworks going forward? Yeah, you probably use that, right? So that's like a big thing that you want to illustrate is you need to give that value, but you also don't have to give it to everybody. You can just give it to select people that you know are qualified within your responses as well, right? So to get into the give to get method here, essentially this is what we use at our agency to book a lot of discovery calls, as well as make sure that everybody's in alignment with the actual ICP, right? So to get started here, we have the service breakdown. All right, essentially, so when you look at any service or product, essentially it's a bundle of actions, right? So, for example, for lead generation with our agency or with growth partnership, maybe we'd be looking at the specific leads, right, that we're getting. Maybe we're looking at methods of scraping. Maybe we're looking at copywriting frameworks. Maybe we're looking at this framework even itself, right, the give to get method of how it'd be valuable for them. So that already is 4 actions that bundled together can be sold as more like a lead generation thing, right? A lead generation service rather. But if you break each of those things down, that list part might be really valuable to one person, right? Maybe on the marketing team for them to use in other campaigns. The copywriting frameworks might be really valuable for the sales part of their team, right? And each of those independent actions can be broken down for basically any service or any product out there and matched as a lead magnet for them, right? So, just a couple examples: sales call analysis methodologies, deal qualification matrix, right? Pipeline velocity. This is more specifically for sales, I would say, as well as like objection handling frameworks, right? Those are pretty valuable things. When you look for components, you want to like actually find things that are very easily applicable. They're not hard to digest because they need to actually consume the thing for it to be valuable to them, right? Makes sense. And you have to show that you have a unique and really valuable approach within that method that addresses their pain point. The reason you need to really focus on this pain point with these lead magnets is it accomplishes what they want to be benefiting from, right? And this is where the research portion comes in, right? And to get into the research portion here, basically it's an analysis, right? So if we know that an objection handling framework will allow a sales team, for example, of course, to close more deals, and normally people that are experts in this field charge 3K for this, and it can be used immediately for the next sales call where they can just test it out. I mean, you're going to match it probably to a sales rep, right? And you're going to do a different thing for like the velocity tools for a sales manager and a different thing for a tech stack comparison for sales ops, right, within the operations. And these are things that along the value chain, you actually want to match to each role and really segment out. And again, this is something that I teach with other videos within the CESRP framework, right? So context, enrichment, segmentation, and this is the part where we're right now, right, with segmentation, and then finding what's relevant and personalizing, right? And the way we find a lot of these other parts simply through the prospect pain points, right? So analyzing what their pain points are. In this sales example here, right? VP of sales, they're missing revenue targets, team performance issues, they're maybe managing people. CMOs, they're attributing challenges, they're proving marketing ROI to the rest of the team, or maybe the C-suite team, right? CIO, security concerns, CFO, cost optimization. So there's different things that you can create for each of these roles based on their pain points within the organization from your research, and then break it down essentially, right? So for the sales managers, deals are stuck in the pipeline. So obviously that's a pain point. You'd want to actually create maybe a short-term solution for them, right? An initial deal velocity acceleration framework, right? And you give that to them. You find all the sales managers that are in the space, in your space. Maybe you want to tailor some of the labeling of the lead magnet as well as alter it once they respond. And that will allow you to basically increase the perceived value using some of the AI things in today's space. All right. Same thing for the marketing director. Maybe they can't attribute revenue well enough, right? So you want a full funnel attribution model template. Maybe there is some type of integrations that you're able to do within those types of tools. And it also allows you maybe to capture some data for when you're trying to pitch them. Now, format selection, as I said a little bit earlier here, you want to have ready to use assets. All right, so plug and play templates, editable frameworks that are easy to edit, pre-built tools that are ready for them to use and get value from immediately, and like files, basically, like you can imagine like swipe files, like lead lists, things that are already just there already for that value with the context given. For video and visual content, step-by-step tutorials, we've seen those work really, really well when they're done correctly with a really good framework. I can create another video on that actually. It's called the problem solution framework. Um, we'll go into the process breakdowns of like recordings of like how it'd be working for them, as well as like visual flow charts of maybe where their current process is probably, as well as how it would look like after the implementation of this lead magnet or their actual full solution. And then of course like annotated screenshots, really, really tailored to them on the prospect level, right? So once they already have interested replies, that's when we'll go through and create more of a custom asset on that visual level. For data-driven resources, reports are very, very good for like high traffic areas, because if you can break down, the bounce rate and the web traffic rate you have per country, and maybe how much revenue you're missing per country, for example, that's a pretty valuable report, right? You can make some pretty good decisions on that. And that allows you to have probably other assets in line, maybe like a cost saving or cost calculating calculator. All right. It allows you to have those trend analysis with predictions, just so you see exactly what you need to be making for those sales assets to really convert. On the selection factors, so you of course want to look at like the role, I would say particularly. Preferred learning style is typically tied to the direct language you're using of the labeling that you want to apply to the lead magnet. You also want to, of course, have it be very, very fast to consume. The complexity of it, you want to typically have lower, right? Since it is an intro product essentially, or intro info thing that you're giving. And you want to have the production capabilities basically to actually fulfill upon this at scale if needed, right? So sometimes you might have to collaborate with, let's say, like a front end and back end engineer to create a very simple different scopes or different outlines for the types of tools that you're creating. But to get into the next step here for out of fulfillment, right, is the creation process, right? So focus on making your lead magnet essentially that can be used the same day, can be tailored to the exact person that you're targeting. So this is really, really specific, right? So if you know that somebody's in a sales manager position versus a marketing position, it's going to be completely different, right? You're going to create a doc or a report specifically for sales managers in this space, in this industry, right? And that will allow you to really label it for them, even though it might be the same asset or very similar asset for other people in other spaces, right? It's all about the wrapping paper on the gift, essentially. Uh, you want to have it be at least professionally designed here for, overall, like, make sure it makes sense with your brand schema. Maybe it makes sense with your client schema as well. You want to have it be impressive enough, or at least relatable enough to where they can consume it. And you want to be unique, right? So contain information within your reports or create tools that other people just don't really have, right? If it's already a commoditized lead magnet, you probably not want to go with it, right? You can probably create something else or a different part of the service that you can break down and then find for that. For concrete, like make sure that the delivers a specific outcome, not just a theory, right? So if the report is acknowledging that it's getting these numbers, the numbers are already in the report, and you have pretty solid evidence of these numbers, not just saying that you have numbers and that's it, right? Now, to kind of go into step 6 here for deployment, what we like to do is basically a 4-touch strategy with this. So you want to really tailor that asset first with the wrapping paper analogy I gave. So you reference a specific role, specific industry, a specific benefit, and you offer that tailored solution as part of that labeling, right? And then you want to share the success story of someone else that has used this thing, right? So if we have a specific report for an industry, maybe the next success story would be like they used these insights to do this thing, right? And that thing could be their benefit that they're already after based on the pain point they've researched, right? And you also want to highlight a specific insight from the asset on like the second follow-up. This can really include like a really interesting insight from the group of insights that you already have that could really tie into that benefit from the first follow-up, right? And the last one is, of course, like suggest a specific application to their situation, as well as you could ask them, like, is this at all relevant for you? Because maybe you need to alter your lead magnet at this point if they haven't responded on email 4, right? So personalized outreach to show you understand their role, their pain points, their benefits, make it really accessible. Don't do anything really too complex. Track parts of the asset that are engaged with the most, and then follow up based on their specific interests, or ask them what are they interested in. A couple of real world examples that we've ran, right? So we've ran the SaaS ROI calculator. Essentially, like you can do that either within Excel, or you can slap a front end on it. And we tailor this like for like the CFOs and financial directors, as well as some other C-suite roles that really wanted something like this to calculate like the ROI they were getting per tool if you were pitching, let's say, an alternative, right? If you get that implementation cost versus the amount of returns they're getting, then you're able to essentially demonstrate that value and at least have a conversation about how you can reduce or alternatively charge for an applicable tool that might do something similar, right? And we actually got 34% meeting rate with that tool. It's pretty valuable. I think we invested a couple $100 into a front end designer and a front end developer that just created a very simple ROI calculator with the specific use case that we were going for, and we could actually tailor it to the type of response we got. So we can kind of tailor the ROI calculator and the contents of it, and that was actually pretty good. For marketing agencies, right, you could use like a PPC intelligence report, or maybe you're analyzing SEMrush, SERP data, different types of like Ahrefs or similar web, and it reveals like your competitors' ad strategies, where they're spending their budget essentially on SEO or social or direct traffic. And a lot of people want to see this on their competitors simply because they think it's going to give them an edge, right? And because they think of that, you can actually pitch something to bridge the gap if your competitor is further ahead. So that was one of our qualifying factors, is who is a larger competitor in the space than them. But that's not like too large. It's like in the middle. And then we were like kind of exactly showing them a roadmap of how they could reach these milestones to get to that level and take over the market that way, right? So we actually experienced a 28% conversion to paid campaign management after that, which is pretty huge. Like, of the meetings that we got, 28% basically converted into some type of plan simply because we gave them an initial report that outlined the situation in the market, right? So that's really the power of those types of lead magnets. And with sales consulting, we had like more of an outreach sequence. Honestly, it was with the videos and templates. It was tailored mainly for the SDR teams, simply because a lot of them just didn't understand the core benefits of their offer. And And this allowed us to get pretty high response rates from an omni-channel approach, right? So we did some videos, follow-ups, we did some emails, as well as some cold and warm calling, and that allowed us to get 45% reply rates, right, from when these sales leaders were using it essentially across the omni-channel approach, which is pretty high, right? Because between the follow-ups, the value, and the videos with the lead magnet, as well as like the outreach sequences, is pretty good. Um, Here's a couple examples also that you could use like for high converting lead magnets by role. So for CMOs, kind of like we mentioned earlier with the competitor marketing channel analysis, maybe a budget calculator, attribution models, content performance benchmarks, just so they see where they are, right? That's a big one as well, identifying a pain or identifying a need. For sales leaders, you had sales velocity acceleration playbooks, so closing deals faster. Sales call recording analysis. Maybe there's a tool that you can put in or give out a simple, basically, here's what you could have improved on for free, right? Top performer habits, research reports, objection handling video libraries. These are things that simply reduce the amount of scope that they need to do in their day-to-day lives, right? Um, Additionally, for financial executives or IT executives as well, we had like tech ROI calculators, legacy system migration roadmaps. These guys are more technical, so they want more of a how-to guide typically, or exactly how to do something to actually maybe convert to a new solution, even though they already need to have it. All right, and that's actually another point that we can make up is essentially you really want to focus on the things they need, not just want, of course. So the way you can really focus on those needs is, of course, with the pain point, but also mixed in with a bit of customer discovery. All right. So if you know that something's lower on the value chain, we like to avoid it. We want to go for the harder lead magnets to create that most people actually have to create something custom outside of just a document or a template. Right. And then for financial executives, of course, they're financially oriented, so they want to reduce their risk financially or increase their profitability, as well as maybe have some types of modeling that they can do on the cost optimization basis. All right, and for HR directors, compensation benchmark reports are great, especially if you're like pitching more hiring things, maybe your retention strategy. There's different tools for reporting as well, frameworks for performance reviews. There's a lot of different ways to create high converting lead magnets in this space, but essentially the 7 formats that really convert, just high level, typically are custom built tools, video content, data driven assets, templates, and frameworks, right? And you really want to go for typically the custom built tools are the most effective, right? So those ROI calculators, savings and performance, decision making matrices, automated audit tools, custom spreadsheets with formulas. Those types of things are really hard to create at scale sometimes, and you have to alter them per prospect, but they ROI definitely the most. Frameworks are good sometimes as well, depending on the industry. From what we've seen, step-by-step tutorials work as well, but everything has to be in alignment with the type of industry that you're working within, right? And to wrap this video up here, essentially with the implementation checklist, right? So you want to identify 3 to 5 pain points from those bundles of actions, list your insider knowledge with those pain points, see how big of a pain point actually is, select a format that is digestible for their role specifically, right? So a tech role probably wants more of a how-to guide. Maybe sales guys want more of a framework, right? It's just gonna be different to the role. Um, you're gonna create like something that's already branded for what you're trying to pitch. So sometimes there's leveling degrees of branded assets. Maybe you don't need to have everything that's custom built or custom formatted. It can just be more of a raw document, and that will still perform very, very well, right? Then you want to also develop a role specific outreach sequence that we mentioned earlier, that 4 step sequence where you're listing out how somebody else used it, how they can use it, the main benefit, and then what else you should change, right? Test with a small segment of your market first. Don't go and blast this out to everybody, simply because you want to actually see, is this magnet resonating more? And within this, of course, when you're testing, remember that delayed fulfillment exists. You don't have to have like this given to everybody. You don't have to promise the world to everybody and deliver it. people don't remember what types of emails they're getting from a week and a half ago. But if they're in your qualified prospect group, then of course, give them the asset. You can make sure that it's relevant for them and they'll get on the call. Uh, Track which elements generate the most engagement, right? So this is your tracking software. For some types of tools, maybe you want to use like Hotjar or heat maps or things like that. And you want to refine that based on the feedback and results that you're getting. You want to create additional role specific versions on the labeling part within the magnet as well, right? So in your email or in your outreach copy, maybe you're tailoring it to a specific role or an industry or a benefit. You want to do the exact same thing within the actual magnet so that when you're giving it to them, everything is succinct. And then develop a follow up content strategy that builds out those next and initial assets within it. So hopefully that was helpful. This was a longer video here going over all of the types of lead magnets that we've seen work within our growth agency. In case you're interested in learning more about how we can do something like this for you or create assets for you with our tech team, as well as couple it with our marketing team, our data-driven marketing, essentially feel free to book a call either through my LinkedIn. You can feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty responsive there. And see you guys in the next video.